When I was young, my mom, who was an elementary school teacher for 30 years, one of the books that my brother and I would read was called Mrs. Nelson is Missing. And Mrs. Nelson has a challenging classroom. And so she disguises herself as a substitute teacher named Viola Swamp. And Viola Swamp is just as difficult as the classroom of children. And so she straightens them out. And when Mrs. Nelson comes back, the kids are so thankful to see Mrs. Nelson return. As part of the School Days program, I was given an opportunity to facilitate a classroom on the first day when their teacher was absent and they had a substitute, and I showed up with the substitute there. I felt a little bit like Mrs. Nelson. Viola Swamp wasn't showing up and I wasn't coming back, but I came back, and we all continued to come back. We would show up as a welcome team to greet the kids as they came through the front door. So I worked with this particular classroom for the rest of the semester and got to know these kids pretty well and developed a bond and a rapport. There had been an incident before the day had even started, and so it was a little chaotic in that welcoming that morning. I remember that a couple of the students who were in the classroom that I facilitated stopped me and asked if I was still going to be in the classroom that week. And it was 2 weeks into facilitating in that particular classroom. And those students, a couple of them had latched on to this idea that a facilitator would be coming in once a week. They were looking forward to it. I repurposed a message that I had given some student athletes, some football players a couple of years earlier before a game. The message was, don't show up to be shown up, show up to be remembered. You can show up to be shown up, or you can show up to be remembered. Show up not to be shown up, show up to be remembered. You could take it any one of the three ways that I just phrased it. Don't show up to be shown up, show up to be remembered. In the movie Field of Dreams, Kevin Costner, who plays the character Ray Kinsella, he travels across the country to take James Earl Jones' character to a baseball game. And at the baseball game, something is supposed to happen. After the game, he drops James Earl Jones back home, and as he's turning the van around, the headlights of the van spotlight James Earl Jones, who's standing in the street. And he says, "Go the distance. Moonlight Graham." Kevin Costner says, what does it mean? He said, "It means we're going to Minnesota to find Moonlight Graham." Go the distance. Show up to be shown up, or show up to be remembered.